we are, the way that modern society works, the rate at which it moves, the expectations around it does put us constantly in that fight or flight mode. Like we're constantly in stress state.
Mm,
And we are always looking for the fight because we're so on edge all the time. Like we're expecting it from any angle.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
it is really hard to take that step back and like look at something objectively before we make a decision on how we want to approach it and how we want to move forward. And I think it really is that self relationship that helps us be able to take the pause and the breath to turn like that emotional brain off and turn like, other things on so we can just assess before we act. Hello. Welcome back to another episode, my fearless friends. Today we are talking all things, as much as we can, in a small amount of time, relationships. So, relationships, we all know how important they are. We are relational beings. Like, we need those supportive, productive relationships around us if we really want to thrive. We know that, whether it's our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with romantic partners, friends, family, business, work, spiritual, whatever it is, it really doesn't matter what type of relationship they are, but if they aren't built on the right foundations, we are going to suffer. And relationships can be one of like the trickiest things for us to navigate, right? At least they have been for me, especially the more I deepen into my own personal development journey and all of those things. It is the relationships that have been the hardest piece to navigate. So today, I have an incredible guest coming onto the show to share her knowledge and wisdom with us around this topic. I'm so excited. And we're going to talk about, navigating group mentality, how to speak your truth, and, as always accompanies these conversations about relationships, we're going to, I'm sure, touch on perfectionism, overperforming and our fears that can really be triggered or play a big role within our relationships. So, I don't know if I said already, but we're going to talk about unconditional love versus conditional love, which I'm kind of keen to delve into that because that is a cool one. I had some ideas pop in my head this morning, so I'm interested to see where that one goes. But our guest today is a holistic relationship coach and healer. She helps women heal themselves and their past and create healthy and fulfilling relationships. And I'm so excited to have her here on the show today. She's also building like an incredible conscious community in the online space. I'm really grateful to have her here. So please welcome to the show, Liz Ross. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Crystal. It's such an honor. I love like collaborating and with like-minded people, and I'm so excited to yeah, chat to you today, answer any questions, and see what unravels.
Yes. Yeah, definitely here for the unraveling and definitely here for the co-creating, the collaborating. I honestly, it's the way forward. I just in what I see in the new earth, the new paradigm, the new way of living and working, it is not one person led, even in the coaching space, I really feel like that it is a co-creation. Whether one person has like the lead of it, it's still being co-created all the time. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. And what I would really like to start with is talking a little bit around what is it that drew you into that holistic relationship coaching and healing space. Like maybe if you can sort of unpack what that means in terms of like
Yeah,
what is a holistic relationship coach,
yeah.
and why specifically relationships of all the things to
Yeah.
coach around, why holistic relationships?
Yeah, I love that. I love that question, Crystal. So holistic encompasses the whole person, the whole being, not just a part of them. So I'm not just looking at you know, their mental or emotional part of them. I'm also looking at their spiritual part, the part of them that connects to God or themselves or the universe, whatever the person's beliefs are. It's encompassing the whole being, not just a part of them. Also looking at their physical health. Sometimes I might refer them to the energetics part of the one-on-one healing. I may refer them out to someone else more specific to their health diagnosis. So I look at people holistically, I look at the details of a person, I look at their past, their present, and what their future is looking like. Do you know what I mean? So I utilize like intuitive information that might come through, and yeah, to support people and guide people, women specifically, around knowing who they are, gaining clarity on who they are and the next steps forwards. So holistic is encompassing the whole person. And what got me into it actually was I was a registered nurse and student midwife, and I noticed that I was doing things a bit differently to the other nurses and midwives. I would sit there and listen to the women, I would advocate for them, I would like educate them, I would refer them, and they were loving it. And sometimes within the healthcare system, I would see things, or I would have a download of something and I'd share it with them. And they're like, "How did you know?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I just felt like you needed to know that to help you like through the pain or to help you through the next process." And so I realized that where I was working, it wasn't looking always at the whole person. Sometimes people were just like, okay, this is the surgery or this is the medication. And I'm like, is there another way? And I think ultimately I was going through workplace bullying. I didn't fit in. I felt alone. My best friend had passed away from suicide like the year before, and she was in a narcissistic abusive relationship, and there was just so much happening, so many crazy things were happening, and I'm like, what do I do? So I decided to, and I was also fostered out when I was 2 weeks of age. So all of those crazy things, the bullying in the workplace, my best friend passing away, and then being fostered out, and all, which is like being adopted, I realized that I'm passionate about helping people to heal themselves and their heart and their past and the relationship with themselves. So I guess ultimately that's what led me into holistic relationship coaching, was potentially traumas and past traumas. And I didn't want other people, other women, to go through that alone. So yeah, I decided to open up my business, Evolve and Become, 5 years ago, and support people holistically. And it seems to work quite well. I think a lot of the women, yeah, they feel seen and heard and supported, and yeah, they're glad it's not just about, you know, listening or holding space. Like that's
Yeah.
beautiful, and they feel trust and support, but they're like, oh, like you also do energy healing, you also give me oils, you also do a prayer with me if they want that, you also advocate for me and refer me to mediation or family court law if they need that, or to the GP. Like I don't just do an hour session with someone and see you later. Like
Yeah.
there's follow-up, there's care plans, there's safety care plans if people need that. It's like people to me are like, you know, part of my community, I guess, or part of my tribe, and I want to see them flourish and find their independence.
Yeah.
Because a lot of women don't feel disempowered and maybe dependent upon other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And so many things were coming through when you're speaking it, but I think really what you're talking about is we just have this craving within us, and it's become more and more prevalent and more apparent, and it's getting louder and louder within all of us, especially since everything that happened with COVID and lockdowns, of we're
Mm.
just like, I want more than talk therapy and medication. You know, I
Yeah,
want someone to see me as a person, not just like a number and not just a a name on my schedule. Like when you
yeah,
think about going into like the traditional like health system, it's like you're inputted into data, you show up on someone's calendar, they see you for 10 minutes, they don't like know anything about you, and then it's like, okay, go and do this and catch you later, you know?
yeah,
And when you're talking about how much the women love like the energy work that you do and the spiritual aspect, I think it's just really because it's calling to that like thing inside of all of us that is just like screaming out in like the collective, the consciousness, all of it, to be like, please see me as a human being,
yeah,
as a whole person. And a lot of us are waking up to this, like knowing that we're more than just this physical being now too, like that we do have that connection to, like you said, whether you say God, universe, source, doesn't, whatever
yeah,
resonates for you, we're all becoming really aware we have that connection, and that is that energetic space. And I've been on the same journey myself inside my business coaching.
yeah,
I was very much like strategy, 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 do, like have a goal and take the action to get the goal. And I've really started opening into this energetic space myself for my own business, and now opening that up to my clients as well. And the shift is just, it's like it's next level. It's next level because it really is like a deeper part of all of us that we're all learning to access. So yeah, I love that. I love that that is a big focus of what you do with women. And I'd
yeah.
say that's why they love it so much too, and if even if they can't necessarily like put it into words.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They do love it. They like the spiritual part of it, and they get a lot of insights and visions and breakthroughs
Yeah.
from their past trauma that they're like, oh my gosh, like that was mind blowing. I'm glad that we did that, and you sat there in the darkness with me, and then I came out through this light, and they found their light, and they're like, this is so good, and I'm like, oh, I just like to see you like happy and free. That's all I'm wanting, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting.
Yeah, I do love that. And there is we are moving away from where I thought we're going, but I don't care because I'm totally here for it. If you
Yeah.
don't know, I'm a manifesting generator, so I'm all
Oh,
about the pivot and knowing it's going to come back around at some point. So I love this because um I've been watching a show on Gaia called Divine Science, and it's really delving into this convergence between ancient
yeah,
wisdom that's
yeah,
always been there, that we have, called woo woo or
yeah,
magic or hippie bullshit or whatever, that,
yeah,
it's not real, it's not quantifiable, it's not tangible, it's not real. And modern science that has now been like, actually, this is, and here's all the evidence we've collected that says it has an impact. So um, that's happening more and more within our sort of spaces of coaching, in whatever type of coaching it is, where I think we're starting to bring those things in ourselves and realize that that's actually how we move like a lot faster. And healing is such a big part of it, like such a big part, the healing part.
yeah, it is. It's like all of those simple little steps, even though they feel uncomfortable, like breath work or meditation or mindfulness or drawing or arts therapy or whatever it might be for each person, it's connecting us back to our body, back to our heart coherence,
Mhm.
back to that connection. And it might be when we're connecting with our partner, for instance, or yourself, we might eye gaze in the mirror when we're connecting to ourselves, or eye gaze to our partner. We might put our hand on our heart and their hand, or yeah, our hand goes on their heart, their hand goes on our heart, and we might breathe with them to
Mhm.
co-regulate our heart so they're more connected. Because it's so easy this day and age to be in a stress response, to be in flight and flight response, that it's so easy to go into conflict.
Yeah.
And when we come back to, okay, yes, it feels uncomfortable. However, how do we get out of the angry mind or the emotions other than, yeah, we can release it and talk about it, which is beautiful and that's important. However, if people are getting stuck in a loop and they're not getting resolutions, that's when it might be important to connect to our heart, to the healing, to the energetics, because it's something that we can't always put into words, it's something that we feel, or we might visualize or tune into. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think that self relationship, right? That self relationship is a really big part of it, especially when we do talk about how we are, the way that modern society works, the rate at which it moves, the expectations around it does put us constantly in that fight or flight mode. Like we're constantly in stress state.
Mm,
And we are always looking for the fight because we're so on edge all the time. Like we're expecting it from any angle.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
it is really hard to take that step back and like look at something objectively before we make a decision on how we want to approach it and how we want to move forward. And I think it really is that self relationship that helps us be able to take the pause and the breath to turn like that emotional brain off and turn like, other things on so we can just assess before we act. So yeah, I'd love to talk around that a little bit with you around, um what's the question I want to ask? In relationship, in the coaching that you do, in
Mm,
that sort of interpersonal relationship coaching, what do you what do you find? Where do you go
yeah.
first? The self relationship or the interpersonal relationship?
I actually, it depends on the context, but normally if I look at the percentages, it's usually the relationship with self
Mm,
that I look at with each client. However, they usually come into me with like, I want to date a man, I want to attract in my ideal partner, or I want to like fix or like heal the relationship with my husband or wife. Or I even get like families coming in, like a grandparent, the daughter, and the grandkids.
mm,
And I'm just like, what the heck? So they come in saying they need family assistance. So the majority of my clients come in for the self relationship.
mm,
However, they might be like, oh, I really want a healthy relationship with other people. And then they come into like 1 to 4 sessions and they're like, wait a second. I'm actually starting to realize I need a better relationship with myself because I was self-loathing towards myself. I was self-hating, I was hating myself because I wasn't able to complete tasks. So that perfectionism thing was coming in. They were procrastinating. They felt like they weren't doing enough.
mm,
And then they're like, oh, so I need to like myself or love myself and take care of myself. And it's like, yeah, like if you're ready to do that and you want to do that and that's what's been coming to you, yeah, let's look at that. So ultimately, it's all about the relationship with the self. However, if they've got a lot of stresses on in the either relationship yourself or their partner or the family unit, I might initially look at those acute stresses and triggers to resolve that and calm it down. And then I like to see them one on one and do family of origin work. So like looking at what their family was like growing up, and then look at inner child work and reparenting work.
yeah.
Like, um, and they're like, oh, okay, because then they can change how they think about themselves and how they think about others, and then they respond differently instead
Mm,
of from that stressful flight and flight response. They're able to, like you said, get that bigger picture.
yeah.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah, that inner child work and that reparenting work is so it's so fundamental to that relationship with self, isn't it, really? Like that's something I've done a lot of work on.
yeah,
And I come from like a middle class background. Like, there was um we were we were comfortable financially.
yeah,
There wasn't any abuse or anything like that, but you still collect these wounds,
yeah,
because that's just what happens to children, because we see everything and take it on as us, like
yeah,
it's a result of something we did, because we don't
yeah,
know anything outside of that. So
yeah,
like it's something that everybody needs to do. But it's such powerful work, because when you're talking about they can then like choose to respond differently.
yeah,
I have experienced that myself, particularly when I became a mother. I really struggled with that transition into becoming a mother. And then I like, let's talk about the perfectionism and the
yeah,
hierarchy, because that's
for sure.
100% me, and putting that onto my
Yeah,
identity as a mother. And
yeah,
then like projecting that onto my relationship with my mother,
Yeah.
and so I had a lot of like, um, yeah, I had a lot to work through. I felt a lot of like anger and like resentment because I like didn't feel like my mum supported me the way I needed to be supported like when I became a mother, but I didn't ask for it either.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
ask for that and yeah, a whole bunch of things, that come up when you're going through those like spiritual awakenings or those dark nights of the soul, or all those things, all those
Yeah.
moments where you're like forced to stop and actually assess where you're at in life and
Yeah.
patterns
Yeah.
you've fallen into. And yeah, now I can really respond very differently to things, like things that used to trigger that response in me or trigger me. uh I can look at that as outside of myself now and have a different relationship with that, and that inner work is so important.
Yeah.
While we're
Yeah.
in the family relationship
Yeah.
space,
Yeah. Yeah. Let's do it.
I'd love to talk about, because I think this is a really important place to talk about it.
Mm.
I'd love to talk about conditional versus unconditional love. I'd
Yeah.
really love to dive a bit deeper into that, because I think for a lot of us, we automatically assume that any love that we're giving or receiving in a family relationship is unconditional, because it's
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
Family comes first and all of that sort of stuff. But
Yeah.
I I really do think a lot and have thought a lot. Two things.
Hmm.
I think the reality is actually something quite different.
Yeah.
I don't think unconditional love happens um, without intention, like
Yes.
especially within that family relationship. I think
Yeah.
we put a lot of conditions on our love subconsciously in a family relationship, whether it's parent to child or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, so I'd love to talk around your thoughts around that. Like, what is
Yeah.
the difference? Does it actually exist without intentionality? Yeah,
Oh,
like
that's a
let's
great
unpack
question.
around that.
That's a really good one. I believe, just for the audience to differentiate between unconditional love and conditional love, firstly. So, conditional love might look and feel like, well, if you do this, then you get this. So, if you clean your room, then I will love you.
Mm.
But even if Bobby and Jill weren't to clean their room, the two kids or whatever, you're still going to love them. Like, you might feel like a little bit cranky or disappointed. However, you still unconditionally love your kids because they're your kids and um, they're doing the best that they can, right? So to me, a conditional type of love is I will only love you if you do this. I'll only love you if you clean the house. I'll only accept you if you listen to me and obey my rules. Like I'll only talk to you if you do as I say, because some children were brought up to be seen but not heard. Some children um, were brought up with the belt and the wooden spoon back in the day, right? Some children might have been neglected or like gone through any type of abuse, whether it's emotional abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, whatever abuse it might be, like for people that I help that have been through pretty severe traumas. And like you're saying, Crystal, like there's lots of motorbikes. There's traumas are like it could be anything that people can take on, even from the news. Like even if they had the perfect upbringing and it was beautiful, they still might have felt like they were alone or disconnected because maybe their parents were working a lot, and then the child might have felt unlovable. So that's still a trauma. Like
Mm,
if they had no like no abuse, they might have felt like that neglect, like they might have felt abandoned. So then that like would affect them, right? So I think to differentiate um conditional love in from my understanding at this point is if you do this then you get this, and an unconditional love is like I love you no matter what.
yeah.
Like, and I do believe that I think there is an intentionality to it, like the intention of the spiritual agreement that we sign up to, that okay, if I become a partner or I become a wife or I become a mother, then my responsibility is this, and the agreement is that I'll unconditionally love my children no matter what, no matter their gender, no matter their sexuality when they, like no matter like their behavior or additional needs, or no matter if they're shy or introvert, like we still unconditionally love and accept them. So I think there is an intentionality there, right?
Yeah.
uh,
I think I've shifted my question
yes,
because you're absolutely right. Particularly in that um, parent child relationship when there isn't that aspect of, abuse and neglect and, that on
yeah,
top of it. We do unconditionally love our children.
yeah,
Perhaps I'm thinking then,
yeah,
um, is this where the wounding as a child comes into play, and we then perceive the love as conditional from our parent because it's like, oh, my parents love me if I get really good grades, my parents love me if I don't cause trouble, my parents love me if I fit, like if I do what they want me to do. But
yeah,
our parents don't necessarily, sometimes they might, because we all say things.
yeah,
Sometimes they might put those sort of pressures or expectations on, but they never. I don't think a open loving parent ever says, "I love you when you do this only, and when you don't, I
yeah,
don't love you." But we
yeah,
sort of perceive that and internalize it as a child, and then
yeah,
it feels conditional. Maybe that's,
yeah.
yes, the
I
love
think that you're
feels
right.
conditional,
Yeah,
even though our parent loves us unconditionally.
yeah, that's right. That's a true point. I think that um that's true in that, because parents, most parents, I'm going to say, like the
Yeah.
majority, I feel like are just naturally unconditional and with their love and acceptance of their children. And they, like you say, they might have, depending on their parenting style, they might have expectations from a place of the intention of, I want the best for my children, I want them to have a good education, or I want them to do well, and I want them to be persistent with it and not give up, right? So they might have rules or consequences. And then the child have, because of their little baby brains, because they're still developing until 25 to 32, the prefrontal cortex, they might be like, take it on, like you've said, Crystal, like, oh, like I'm only loved if I get good grades. I'm only loved if I meet the soccer team.
Hmm.
I guess, yeah, the child can perceive it differently than what the adult is intending when they're saying, I want you to, I really want you to do well. I want you to do your best.
Yeah.
It's not
And
meaning
what we,
that,
maybe the intentionality comes back into it as a parent. And I know relationships are so much more than just parent child, but that's where we're at right now.
yeah,
Um, Perhaps the intentionality as a parent comes into what we choose to praise and encourage, and being really mindful of, are we praising like a result, or are we praising and encouraging a quality, like are we praising their effort, or are we praising, like, that they got an A or they got in the soccer team, or are we praising the fact that, oh, you were really determined, you worked really hard, like you got up when you fell down, like maybe that is, where the intentionality comes in to help, and having an open conversation, right, with our kids. Be
yeah,
like, I'm so proud of you for this. I love you no matter what, but I'm so
yeah,
proud of you for this thing that you did. I noticed that you worked really hard on that. I noticed that that was really hard, but you tried anyway. I noticed that you were felt really nervous, but you still got up there and had a go. Like perhaps
yeah,
that's where, we, as this new age of parent,
yeah,
be intentional with our words to help their child feel that unconditional love more.
yeah, yes, yeah, because it's our actions that speak louder than words. However, words do have a huge impact, like the frequency of the words, especially if their love language is words of affirmation, because
Mm,
kids also have like a love language.
yeah.
So if they're words of affirmation, then it's important that we're conscious of our the way that we speak to them and what we declare over their life, because when we put positive marbles or positive intentions over them,
Mm,
they flourish more. However, if I was to even put one negative marble on there, like that could take all of the 100 beautiful marbles out. So it might be the way that I call it the sandwich. So like positive, improvement, positive. That doesn't work with everyone, but Because there's even children's authors out there that say, we've got to be teaching our children, like, you are lovable, you are courageous, you are brave. And they've got books on it like, I am brave, I am courageous. And they embed that in their mind, like on their bedtime or wake up time, whenever they do their reading. And the authors of the children's books, they talk on the scientific evidence of, declaring, like, I don't know if it's 7 to 10 positives
Yeah.
over the one negative. Like, we need to really embed that they are lovable, because it's going to help to build their confidence and help them to relate and communicate with their friends. And then as they get older into adulthood from 18 plus, it will help them in the relationships out in the big wide world, like
Yeah.
how to set boundaries, consent, how to say no, um,
Yes.
how to not be within a herd mentality, that they are lovable no matter what. They don't have to be a perfectionist or procrastinate, or be hard on themselves, that type of thing.
Yeah.
It all sort of interrelates, and I feel like it comes back to our childhood.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably why it's
Mm,
the parenting one first, because we all do the best that we can as parents. Like,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. 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 Okay, cool. So with that in mind, like let's skip forward then to why us as conscious parents now, it's so important that we are doing this learning and doing this work and doing this healing for ourselves, because what is the impact when we become adults or when our children become adults
yeah,
when they don't understand how to see the difference between the conditional and unconditional love.
yeah.
Like you mentioned around herd mentality, and let's unpack that a bit too, but
Yeah.
also how do they, where do I want to go with this?
I've got two
How,
visions.
okay, cool. Let's
Yeah.
go with those.
So the first one I wanted to suggest is, like, the parent is also the student. I know that sounds bizarre, because people are like, what? But I'm the
Oh,
adult. They need to listen to me. And I'm like, wait a second. Now we're
my
in a
lived experience says that is 100%
different.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, same. I think we're from the same generation.
Yeah.
But I'm like, no, we do it this way now. Like, we ask consent. It comes back to, we are the student, they are the teacher sometimes, and sometimes we're the teacher and they're the student. So
Mm,
it's like, we can learn something from our kids. Well, for me, I'm an auntie to 8 nephews and 1 niece. So, like, I'm always a student, like, as well, because I learn something from them all the time, and
yeah.
then they're learning from me as well. Like, it's important that we have water and that we have vegetables, and like, I do it in, like, share in fun ways. But um yeah, I think it comes back to the student teacher, and always being a student, not just being the teacher that, like, has all the rules and you have to follow the rule book. And also, for the herd mentality, what was coming through is encouraging individuality in our kids. So if they storm out of the classroom or say no, think of that as a blessing, like, that they're able to say no to authority. I love that.
That
Like,
they're able to advocate for themselves and like, yeah, yeah,
yeah, I see it as a good thing.
yeah.
So yeah, I think it's just working with that, like, looking at it differently and communicating to each child in their language, because if you have, like, 10 children in the room or 30 children, they're all going to perceive things differently and communicate differently. So I know for my year 1 teacher, I listened to her because she sat at my eye level and she spoke softly and she was kind. She started with the positive and she said, now, Lizzie, is it okay if you do this? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go do that. And I'll just go do it, because she wasn't yelling at me or criticizing me, or, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
easy to listen and to also learn and
yeah,
engage.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because that herd mentality, let's just make sure we're on the same, like we
Yeah,
have the
herd
same
mentality.
definition of
Yeah,
that. So
yeah,
when I hear herd mentality, um, what I think of is programs,
yeah,
whatever program exists for our community that we're within, our society we're within.
yeah,
And herd mentality is that I follow that program no matter what, because if I don't follow the herd mentality, I'll be ostracized from the herd and then I'll die because we're pack
yeah,
animals, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that could go into education, healthcare, religions. That could go into all of
Yes.
those, because they all
Yeah.
have a particular program or way of looking at things. So I think that's probably why I don't fit in anywhere, particularly neurodivergent person.
Rule breakers. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I love all of those things, but I also think, yeah, okay, it's good to have structure and routine and to get along with people. We sort of need to, because there's like 8 billion people on the planet.
Yep.
However, I also think that we need to think outside the box, to be an individual, to speak our truth and to be seen. Like a lot of women and men, all genders, haven't had the opportunity to be seen or heard,
Yes.
because they were told, you're to be seen but not heard in their childhood, or
Mm.
through their actions, because that's what our grandparents and great grandparents taught our parents, right? Or
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So they thought they were doing the right thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
which they were at that time. So I think, yeah, herd mentality is, people want to feel a part of a community. They want to feel connected, because that's one of our 6 human core needs, as you know, Crystal, is love and connection. And I know in primary school and high school and at TAFE, and some parts of uni, I definitely wanted to feel a part of the community. However, I didn't always fit in though. So I think finding that individuality and finding our own voice, is also important as well, and learning to thrive on our own can be scary during the different journeys and times. However, I think ultimately empowering. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a thought too
Yeah.
in terms of that being empowered and self-confident enough to go
Mm.
against the herd is it really does come back to that understanding of the difference between conditional and unconditional love.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think you're right.
If I unpack that more.
Mm. Yeah, I think you're right that conditional and unconditional part definitely does affect the herd mentality, because if people are in a family or tribe of 10 or 20 people, and there's only one person out of that 10 people or 20 people that has an opinion, and they're like, if I stay in this herd, then I'm going to think the same, speak the same. I might placate, people please to keep the peace. I might overgive and give all my time and energy, and that person might not get anything in return.
Mm.
And so they might think, okay, I'm going to leave the herd. And then they leave the herd, or they don't realize they've left the herd, and they're like, oh, who am I?
Mm.
Like, now they're ignoring me, they're yelling at me, they've kicked me out, they've ostracized me, they've put the whole 10 or 20 family members against me. Like, that was my whole 20 to 40 year lifespan that I was with that. Like, who am I? What's my identity? Because people
Mm.
start to identify themselves in their family, and they stop to identify who they actually are. So
Yeah.
I can speak from life experience on that one. It's bloody scary when you have to change the roles and responsibilities, or step back for your psychological safety, to create boundaries that some people within the unit or tribe might not like, because it's not what they want. But sometimes it's what we need for our own mental and emotional well-being.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I
Yeah.
think too, if you can come back to that relationship with self, and if you can provide yourself the unconditional love,
Yeah.
like no matter what, like you said, go to the mirror and look yourself dead in the eye and speak to your inner self, the little child within you. It's like, no matter what happens, I've got you. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what happens, or whether you win or you fail, or like you try something and it doesn't work, or like you lose weight, you gain weight, you fall in and out of love, it doesn't matter. I've got you, babe. Like, I've got you
Mm.
no matter what. The need to then go and find love from those other places that may be conditional decreases, because you've got it within yourself. Like, you're giving it to yourself. And I think
Yeah.
that then allows you if you are, if you are a visionary, or you are a black sheep, or, you are the one, you're a Neo, it makes it easier
Yeah,
for you to walk that path and to split away from the herd and
yeah,
speak your truth, because you've got the love coming from you, no matter what, no matter who else comes in or out, or what else happens.
yeah. I love that, Crystal. Like that's the nail on the head right there.
Hmm.
What you just said. And it's like that self-validation. And
Yeah.
then it reduces the neediness, the codependent relationships, the tantrums in adult body, and people like, why is adult having a tantrum? Aren't they meant to be an entrepreneur? Have they done the inner child work and reparenting? I don't know. But
So many tantrums when
yeah,
I
yeah,
started my entrepreneurial journey.
yeah,
Trust me, as a
yeah,
high achiever who was like, if I do this work, I get this result.
yeah,
And then the universe and the business world was like, we don't care. We don't care what work you're doing. Like, you're not
yeah.
getting that result straight away. And I was like, this isn't how it's supposed to work. And that's when I was like, oh, there's some stuff going on inside I probably need to look at
Yeah.
here.
I still have tantrums sometimes.
Yeah.
If I get triggered or like a big fear comes up,
Mm,
so I think you mentioned something about fears at the start. I still get triggered as a coach counselor, and I've been doing the work. I'm 34 years old. I've had a counselor, different counselors and mentors since I was about 15, 16,
yeah.
and I still get triggered on random stuff. Like, I'm like,
Yes.
"Okay, I have to look at that. I didn't realize I had a fear around that still, because it goes to
Yeah.
a layer of it. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're so right. And I don't say that as in like I don't have those experiences now, but I can recognize them now. I know what's coming. Like I know where it's coming from. If, like I have a client, or like a potential client that I've been speaking to, and all of a sudden they go, with somebody else, and it's like
yeah,
I recognize what's going on. I'm like, no, no, that's not about them. That's about you need to go to the mirror and talk to yourself now. Like, you need to go and be
yeah,
like, we're okay. Because again, I've got you. Like,
yeah,
I've got you. I know your worth. This is just part of the journey. And yeah, I think it is, like you said, it's a deepening and it's a new level. And then you'll sort of heal one wound and be aware, so you know when it comes up what you need to do, but then something else new pops up that you can heal and grow from as well.
yeah. It's so beautiful.
Mm.
It's not beautiful at the time, though. It's bloody uncomfortable. And you're like,
Yeah, no.
I feel so confused and uncomfortable right now. Do I have to sit here for like a whole weekend or day by myself to just
Yeah.
contemplate? Yep.
It's like, haven't I done this already? Haven't I
Yeah.
ticked this off my list? Isn't that how the world works? We just tick
Yeah.
things off the list and it's
Yeah.
done. Like, we keep
Yeah.
going. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the ducks all lined up,
Yeah.
do all the degrees, buy all the houses, get all the money, and then people are like, am I happy yet?
Yeah.
Well, it only lasted a shitty amount of time.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's all right, mate. Just come in for session. You'll be all
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay. I know that we need to wrap it up, and I feel like we could talk for ages, and we may
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
do some more, but and I know I'm coming to speak on your podcast as well, so that
Yes.
will
I'm
be
so
really
excited.
exciting.
Yeah.
But I do have a question that I like to ask everybody at the end.
Yeah.
Every guest I ask the same question, so I'd like to finish off with that.
Yeah.
Before I ask that question though, where can people find you if they want to learn more about what you do, or possibly want to work with you? Where can they come to find you?
Yeah, easy peasy. So Facebook or Instagram, just type in Liz Ross. So Liz and then space RASS, and find me on my free Facebook group. Create healthy relationships through healing. I give a lot of like a weekly Monday Q&A every Monday, and then random monthly masterclasses or 3-day challenges. So yeah, I think
So much free value you give
yeah,
in the group. It is, yeah, it's phenomenal. It's
yeah,
amazing.
I think it's
Um,
in
yes,
yeah.
it is, and I'll put the like links to that in the show notes as well, so that people can come over there and find you.
Thank
But
you.
my last question for you
Yeah.
is, what does the word fearless mean to you?
Oh, I like that question. Let me meditate and ponder on that. Yeah, the word fearless, I think, means to me that it's okay to have fear and to do it anyway. So it's okay to have the fear. Fearless has a courageousness around it and within it. And it's like the fear is only as big as you choose it to be. So I think it's like having the fear in one hand, having the courage in the other hand, bringing them together and being like, hey, let's just get in here and let's just get it done and let's just do the best that we can for today or for this week, or let's try something new even though it feels uncomfortable. Let's sit in the room and have the conversation even if I want to run away. So it's being fearless even if you feel vulnerable, even if you feel scared. It's trying something new, and that something new or something different might be confronting. So however, it's going to help the person with the relationship with themselves and potentially the relationship with other people when it comes to creating healthy relationships.
Yes.
So yeah, that was a long answer. But
Oh, and it is, because it isn't a simple word. It's a
yeah,
very layered word. It really
yeah,
is. Which is why I ask it, and which is why the podcast is called Fearless, because I think something we all want to be fearless, but
yeah,
that is not the absence of fear. That's not actually what fearless means. Like you said, it's like acknowledging our fear and knowing it's there and sitting with it, but then tapping into our courage and, yeah, doing it anyway, making the moves, having the conversation, speaking our truth, building the business, like whatever it is. Yeah. So I love that answer. And it is always long, and it does always people go, I have to think about this, which is why I ask it. So
yeah.
thank you so much for sharing. And thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
having this chat with me. I'm sure everybody got immense value from that. And if you have any questions around it, you can come over to Instagram. You can ask me the questions, and Liz can come back if there are lots of questions and she'd like to. So let us know. We'd love to know your thoughts as well on this session. What came up for you, what questions you still have. And as always, I love you, I believe in you, and be amazing. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Fearless. I hope you got some incredible value out of that episode. I would love to know what you thought about that episode, what your takeaways were. Come over to Instagram, say hello, send me a message. I am really big on connecting with my community and building relationships that last. So please come over and let me know. And if you know that you're ready to take this information, everything you hear in this podcast, you're ready to take all of the pieces that you have experienced, here, there, and everywhere, and you're ready to start putting them into action, and you're ready to start moving in that direction of that life that you truly deserve and desire. Come over and check out Activate ED. It is a community for like minded people to learn how to actually implement and integrate all of the personal development information that is out there, right? Like, there is so much information out there, and information is great to a point, but it's only implemented information that creates change and is powerful, right? So, if you're looking for a safe place to come and experiment and explore and learn inside a supportive community, Activate ED is the place for you. We have masterclasses, we have weekly coaching, we have guest speakers come in and present. So come over to my Facebook and check it out on Instagram as well, or in the show notes below. I really look forward to seeing you in there if you feel called to it. I love you. I believe in you. Be amazing.